Mr. Mflomo. I'm back here with you to take you on microeconomics. The main reason for this lesson is to do a revision since we are writing tomorrow on the 21st of. As we are writing paper 2, we are revising paper 2 here. So remember, our topics for this June examination include the main topic is the microeconomics and subtopics are grade 12 economics. Please welcome Mr. Mflomo. I'm here with you today to take you on microeconomics. Under microeconomics, we are doing a revision on 3 subtopics of microeconomics, which include the perfect markets, imperfect markets, as well as market failure. Please join me. Let's see what we have for you. So there is one main major objective here. This is a revision lesson which include perfect market, imperfect market, and market failures. So here we review all topics that we have covered under microeconomics, and there will be some assessments that will be equipping you on how you can respond to questions as you will be writing your examination tomorrow. Economics, paper 2, general examination tips. What is it that you can do to ensure that you score more marks? You need to read instruction carefully with understanding before attempting to answer any question. You have a choice in section B. Remember, section B contains question 2, question 3, and question 4. So in there, you have to write out of 80 marks. You choose 2 questions out of 3. You have a choice in section C. Remember, section C contains question 5 and question 6. So we only have to answer out of 40 marks. So you choose 1 question out of the 2. Select the question that you know best. Start with it. So ensure that as you choose questions that will give you more marks. Don't just choose for the sake of choosing. For example, if you go to section B and you choose the question, you need to browse through the whole question for you to calculate possible marks that you believe you will achieve in that particular question. You have question 2, question 3, and question 4. You need to choose 2 questions. Do not just choose out of nowhere. You must have a reason for choosing, and the reason should be marks that are possible for you to score in that particular question. Given 3 questions, the first one is the one that will be giving you more marks that you will achieve. Second one will be the second best, and you don't take the third one because the third one is not an option for you since you have already answered 2. Avoid choosing questions because you know the answer for 2.1.1 or 2.1.2. That is just only for 4 marks. Browse from 2.1.1, 3.1.1, 4.1.1. Also browse 2.1.2, 3.1.2, 4.1.2. And then you go to the data response that is given next. That is for 10 marks. You check how many are the possible marks that you believe you will achieve. And then you also go to the last data response. You check out of 10 marks. From there, you look at 8 marks questions, the 0.4 and the 0.5, the middle order and the higher order. Check those questions and see how many marks can you score. Then those marks, after calculating them all together, will inform you on which is the priority question that you need to do the most. Which one do you believe you will score more marks? Then that's the question that you choose, and then you go for the second best. Where do you get the time to do the whole thing I'm talking about? You have 10 minutes time before the beginning of the examination. Before you start writing, you are given 10 minutes time to check questions and then you browse around to see which one comes first for you. So always utilize that time effectively. Avoid misusing that particular time, because it's very much necessary for you to make a great choice, and also assume on which question will you start with and get prepared for the question. In section C, obvious, that question is a compact question, even though it's subdivided. You check on the main part, which question is there. You also check on the additional part, which question is there. Then you will compare both questions and see which one will give you more marks. Then you can start choosing, then you answer the question. It is always advisable for you to start with the question that you believe you know the most, because you will be accumulating more marks. The other thing, you have to avoid underestimating other sections and invest the most on section C, because all of these marks are necessary for you. For instance, if you neglect section A for the sake of section C, you will be forfeiting 30 marks. And that 30 marks is very much important for you. It contributes about 20% in your entire examination of that particular paper. So ensure that you do not undermine or underestimate section A. It is very much important. Do not go there with guessing. Go to section A, choose accordingly, analyze the given statement, and choose the correct answer. Be able to have these skills to analyze and classify, and also eliminate those answers that are unnecessary in that particular given question. Avoid going there with your own responses, because if you do that, you will find yourself getting zero. Ensure that you analyze everything that is in front of you. Utilize time accordingly in section A. Do not give section A 2 minutes, then you go further just because we are not explaining, you are giving letters. Ensure that marks you proper. Responses you give are correct. Do not guess while you have not even checked if the answer is known or unknown on your side. Use your 10 minutes reading time to determine what you know the best. Like I've said before, that 10 minutes is very important, because it gives you a priority to choose those questions that you believe will give you those marks which you need. It is very important. Remember, no writing in these first 10 minutes. So within these 10 minutes before the starting time, you are not writing, you are just browsing across your paper. We are checking and making the selection of questions with your own mind. Then you will start writing after that 10 minutes have elapsed. So it is very important. Get yourself prepared. Let me start with section A. I've already said something about section A. So say, avoid guessing. Guessing is a dangerous game, because you guess even if you know the answer, if you are familiar with guessing, and you find yourself forfeiting marks that will be very important for you in your year mark. So ensure that if ever you come across any question in any examination, you avoid guessing. You ensure that you analyze. That's a skill, to analyze. You analyze those statements, you give the correct answer. And then in 1.2, always ensure that you start with answers you know. Because if you can guess one answer wrong, that means it is highly possible that we have already lost 2 marks, because if you get one answer wrong, we have taken an answer for a certain question number in there. So always ensure that you answer all of those you know out of 8. After that, you can go back and classify those remaining options. In 1.3, there is numerically. You need to know your content, know your terminology, provide responses, avoid using acronyms and abbreviations in 1.3. They are not marked. Even if the acronym is correct, you need to write in the full weight, so that you can get those marks that are necessary. And then this is the list of possible essays for what? For your tomorrow's examination, especially we are focusing on microeconomics. So microeconomics essays for paper 2, that is your question 5. But for tomorrow is question 5 and question 6, remember. The first one, discuss in detail various equilibrium positions for the perfect market with the aid of graphs. So with this kind of the essay, it is very important, if you can check your exam guideline, it is very important that you get to be familiar with it. It is written, and it is bolded and written in italic. It is written, discuss in detail. It is very necessary and important for you to be able to discuss equilibrium positions for the firm under the perfect market. That's when we talk about the economic profit, economic loss, as well as the normal profit. Be able to draw graphs and explain economic conditions under the economic profit, normal profit, and economic loss. Have the theory part of the profit, have the theory part of economic loss as well as normal profit, then be able to draw the graph and interpret the graph accordingly. Then number 2, discuss the monopoly in detail with or without the aid of graphs. In this case, it is very much important for you to read the question with understanding. Avoid the early excitement as you read the question, because if you simply find yourself with the early excitement, because maybe you believe you know the answer, you know the essay, you will find yourself making a mistake. Discuss the monopoly in detail. Then the question standard will be telling if with the aid of graphs or without graphs. So if you discuss without graphs, you might be given what you should be discussing across maybe characteristics. You'll never know. So be able to discuss monopoly based on the characteristics as well as the use of equilibrium positions, which can be economic profit, also economic loss. They can even ask you to discuss the normal profit. And then the next one, examine the oligopoly in detail. As you examine oligopoly in detail, you need to be able to discuss everything from the characteristics up to the key demand curve about the oligopoly. It is very important for you to be able to give that discussion in detail. And then compare and contrast any two types of market structures: perfect market to the imperfect market to imperfect market. The question can come in the examination asking you to compare and contrast the market structures. Maybe it can be perfect market and monopolistic. It can be perfect market and oligopoly. It can be perfect market and monopoly. It can be the monopolistic and the monopoly, or the monopolistic and oligopoly. So any kind of that can come in, it will be allowing you to accumulate more marks because we are comparing. So always ensure that as you are given the question, you understand the question first before you attempt to answer. And then we go to the next two questions under the market failure. Discuss in detail how the following factors lead to misallocation of resources in the market. So in this case, we are talking about reasons for the market failure. But this is how normally the question will be coming based on the examination guideline. Discuss in detail how the following factors lead to the misallocation of resources in the market. Those are the reasons for the market failure. Namely, externalities, missing markets, imperfect competition, lack of information, immobility of factors of production, and imperfect distribution of income. So it is very important for you to be able to discuss all of these. Sometimes the examiner might only require 3 of them to be discussed out of 26 marks. So ensure that you are able to discuss all of these reasons for the market failure. It is very important if you talk about externalities that you do what? You define externalities. These are benefits or charges that are borne to the third party or that spill over to the third party. We call this one spillover effect. And then be aware that externalities can be divided into 2. The negative externalities as well as the positive externalities. And then you define the negative, you define the positives. And then also, going to the missing markets, I'm just giving you some hints. Under missing markets, it is very important for you to know components that should be discussed under the missing markets. We know that the market is totally incomplete without the provision of some goods and services, which include public goods. So in there, you must be able to discuss public goods, provide 2 types of public goods, namely community goods and collective goods. Discuss them, give some examples, give their characteristics. And then you go further to merit goods. You discuss merit goods, and then you give examples. You give their effect. And then go further to demerit goods. You discuss demerit goods, give their effects, and give some examples. And then you go to the imperfect competition. It is very important for you to know the conditions under the imperfect competition. Remember, this is the market structure that do not comply with the perfect market conditions. So in here, we know that the likes of monopolies, they are oligopolies. They use their dominant positions to do what? To exploit consumers onto higher prices. They restrict competition because they are protected by barriers to entry. And then lack of information. That's when you discuss the impact of the incomplete information within the market. What is the impact of the lack of information? To whom? You divide this thing into to consumers. How does it affect consumers? To producers or entrepreneurs. How does it affect entrepreneurs or producers? And then to workers. How does lack of information affect workers. It is very important that to make those divisions as you discuss your lack of information. And then we talk about the immobility of factors of production. If we talk about the immobility of factors of production, you simply go into them and then explain the immobility of labor. What is the effect of immobility of labor? What causes immobility of labor? You talk about the capital to say the capital is not easily movable from one place to another. Explain those effects, explain reasons for it not to easily move from one place to another. That's when you even talk about the infrastructure being immobile from one place to another. And then you talk about land. Obvious land is fixed, doesn't move. And then you talk about entrepreneurship, whereby entrepreneurs are having skill that cannot simply be diverted to another industry. If a person is skilled in a particular, maybe let's say in the mining industry as an entrepreneur, it will be difficult for the person to operate the business under agricultural sector. So we talk about those things whereby there is inflexibility. And then we go further to imperfect distribution of income. That's when you talk about inequality that exists within the economy, emphasizing that if ever the initial distribution of income is unfair or unequal, obvious the final one will also be unequal or unfair within the economy. That's when you talk about the fact that if ever there is inequality within the economy, very many goods are produced for very few people, while few goods are produced for many people. So that in that case, you will be able to simply respond in this essay, which is a part of the market failure, reasons for market failure or misallocation of resources within the market. And then the other one, which is the last one, discussing detailed state intervention as a consequence of market failure, with or without the aid of graphs. So it is also very important for you to note this part. The question might be open to you to say just discuss in detail without specifying if you should draw graph or not. But it is very important that you understand the question, underline those key points that state with the aid of graphs or without the aid of graphs, so that you will not waste your time discussing something that is not required by the examiner. So in this case, we talk about the direct control, whereby the government intervened directly in the economy to set some rules and regulations as well as some laws in order to ensure that maybe within the economy, some of the things are happening and some are not happening. That's when the government intervened to regulate some conditions in the economy. And then the imperfect market. In this case, you have to discuss the manner in which the government tries to curb the imperfect market within the economy. Discuss the impact of the imperfect market in there, having those monopolies and oligopolies existing, and I mean also reducing less output in the economy, and also being protected by barriers to entry that make them to be very much inefficient. You discuss that. It is very important for you to know it. And then minimum wages. It is very important that you know the theoretical part of minimum wage. So you must be able to define the minimum wage, give the effects of minimum wage, give reasons for the minimum wage. And then after that, you must be able to draw the graph and interpret the graph. It is very important because you don't know how will the question come. So be able to do all of those things per consequence in this case, where you have to draw graphs. And then minimum prices. It is also important for you to be able to explain minimum prices in details, reasons for minimum prices, some effects of minimum prices, and then draw and interpret the graph for minimum prices. Also, maximum prices, you must be able to do the same. And then the effect of taxes when the government intervened by levying taxes on some goods and services. You must be able to explain the effect of that. Either it can be negative or positive, and then draw the graph and interpret the graph. Also, subsidies on goods and services, the provision of production subsidies by the government to businesses so that they can produce more goods and services at the lower cost and sell them at the lower cost. You must be able to explain the effect of production subsidies to businesses, and then also be able to explain, to draw the graph and interpret it. That is very much important. So the effect of subsidy can affect both the consumers and producers, including the supply of goods and services. And then redistribution of wealth. And then you need to know means or measures used by the state to redistribute income and wealth in South Africa. That's when we talk about the likes of progressive tax system. You talk about the broad-based black economic empowerment. You talk about the Economic Equity Act. That's when you talk about redress policies, economic redress policies, as well as the part of redistribution, which is the progressive tax system. And then also you talk about the land restitution and land redistribution. It's very important that you are able to give the pure discussion in those in case you come across any kind of the question based on this. And then the government involvement in production. How does the government intervene in production? We know that if ever some goods are not provided by the market, the state intervenes by making the provision of those goods and services in a form of public goods, which can be community goods as well as collective goods. And then the state also intervene to ensure macroeconomic stability in case full employment is not achieved, in case macroeconomic stability is not, economic growth is not achieved, and then exchange stability is not achieved, including price stability and economic equity. The state can intervene by making the use of demand side policies as well as the supply side policies in the economy, be able to provide the pure discussion in that. And then let's go further and see what we have for you. These are the examination dates. Remember, we've already written examination paper 1 for June. And then now you have paper 2 to be written tomorrow on the 21st of June. It is out of 150 marks, remember. We have section A for 30 marks. Section B, we have 2 questions. You have 3 questions, but to answer only 2, they will be giving you 80 marks, 2 of them. And then section C, we have 2 questions, but to answer only 1, then it will be giving you 40 marks. In that case, you will be writing out of 150 marks. And then for the prelim examination dates are already available for economics. Paper 1 will be written on the 8th of September 2022, and then paper 2 will be written on the 20th of September 2022. So you need to get yourself prepared because the syllabus will be completed very soon or as soon as possible. Then get yourself ready and prepared for the upcoming preliminary examination after this June examination that you will be writing. Final examination is already available for you. And then paper 1 will be written on the 1st of November. So this will be your last paper to be written in paper 1 for economics. And then paper 2 will be written on the 8th of November. And then paper 1 is 9 o'clock in the morning, meaning it's the first session. Paper 2 is the second session at 14 hours or 2 o'clock. So since you have this day, they should be acting as a motivation to you so that you can push yourself to the greater heights because you know your struggle is in economics. You know where you can achieve the most in economics. So try to ensure that you get yourself prepared and accumulate your information and knowledge every day for you to get into the examination as a ready learner so that you can enjoy your grade 12 in economics more than ever. And then economics paper 1, this is the multiple choice. You have multiple choice in section A. Which is out of 30 marks, and then still section A matching item, which is column A and column B for 8 marks, and then provide the term or description. For the definition giving, that's when you will be writing out of 6 marks. Then all in all, we are writing out of 30 marks. So examples of multiple choice questions. A business that cannot influence the price is called. So avoid coming here and guess. Always ensure that you know your content. So a business that cannot influence the price. So in this case, you will be thinking of those businesses or the market to say, okay, the monopoly is the price setter. Monopolistic has a certain control over the price. Oligopoly has a control over the price. Then the perfect market is a price taker. Then you can notice the answer here. Then you choose the answer. The firm is the price taker. And then we continue. Monopolistic competition and a monopoly differ with respect to entry to the market is free. The marginal revenue curve runs below average curve, and then the demand curve of the individual firm or business slopes downward. The individual business maximizes profit in the long run. And then you analyze your responses, and then you can see the entry into the market is free. A market structure where there are no barriers to entry is called stroke or A or N market. We have the monopoly, monopolistic, the perfect, and oligopoly. A market structure where there are no barriers to entry. So in this case, we have the monopolistic, we have the perfect. Let's see. There is a perfect. And then we know that also under the monopolistic, we don't have barriers to entry. And then we have the demand curve of a monopolist in the market, in the long run is, so for the monopolies, the demand curve is what? Unitary elastic, relatively elastic, horizontal, relatively inelastic. We know that the demand curve for the firm under the monopoly is downward sloping, but it is a little bit steep. So it is relatively, for the monopolistic, it is relatively elastic, but for the monopoly, it is relatively inelastic because that demand curve is very much steep. This one is for the monopoly, and this one is for the monopolistic. And then examples of 1.3 questions, give one term for each of the following descriptions. No examples or acronyms should be provided, including abbreviations. So you simply provide the answer in full, in full, not as abbreviated. And then an illegal market in which illegal goods are bought and sold or illegal prices are charged. And then the amount a firm earns for every unit sold. And then one firm fixes the price and others accept it as a market price. Goods beneficial to society that every individual should consume irrespective of their income. Buyers and sellers make arrangements to limit competition. A combination of perfect market and a monopoly. And then let's see responses. An illegal market is a black market. That one gives you 1 mark. The amount a firm earns is average revenue. AR is not allowed because now we are abbreviating, writing the full word. And then one firm fixes the price and others accept a price. We call that one a price leader. Goods beneficial to society, we call them what? The merit goods. Buyers and sellers make arrangements to limit competition. We call that the collusion. A combination of a perfect market and the monopoly, we call that one the hybrid structure. Remember the following. These are your markets: perfect market, monopoly, oligopoly, and monopolistic. You must always remember this example for the lower order. Under perfect market, our example is Johannesburg Security Exchange, foreign exchange market, and agricultural produces. And then for the monopoly, Eskom, Transnet, and Dinel. And then oligopoly, cell phone industry, motoring industry, steel industry. There are so many that we can list. Monopolistic, hotel industry, fast food industry, hairdressing industry, and many more. So be able to provide those examples in case they're required. And then section B, the different types of questions now. In this case, we are simply providing the revision on how you can respond to the different types of questions. For 2.1.1, it can be name two. So you mention any two. And then 2.1.2, how, what, why, the type of questions. 2 marks, answer in a full sentence. 2.2, data response, examples will be given. Data response, study the following graph, cartoon, table, extract, real data, and answer the questions that follow. 2.4, one single middle order question. And then 2.5, one single higher order question. Remember, this kind of the question in 2.4, 3.4, and 4.4 can be found in your textbook. Answers can be found in your textbook, but 2.5, 3.5, 4.5 cannot be found in the textbook. That's why you need to be critical and do your evaluation. Section B, examples. Name 2 characteristics of the oligopoly market. And then this is the answer. The product sold is either homogeneous or differentiated. There are few sellers who dominate the market. So there are few large firms in there. The entry, free but not easy. So the entry is not easy to enter for those businesses because there are some barriers to enter that exist to block the entry of some businesses. There is a considerable control over the price. Firms are having a certain control over the price since they get themselves into cartels. Then each firm will be having a say over the price in there. There's a mutual dependence. So firms under the oligopoly are very much dependent to one another. If one firm make an economic decision, other firms might be affected. So they will always be linked to one another. There is collusion. So that means you provide 2 answers. Each answer is 1 mark. We continue. Name any two kinds of monopolies. We talk about natural monopoly, artificial monopoly, or legal monopoly, and then name two types of collusion. That's when we talk about overt or explicit collusion, and then we talk about the tacit or implicit collusion or the hidden collusion. And then we continue. Why is it difficult for the perfect committer to make economic profit in the long run? So, why it's not easy for the firm under the perfect market not to make economic profit in the long run? Remember, in the long run, we talk about factors of action being flexible and new firms are free to enter the market. Economic profits are only made in the short run and could be offset by many sellers who may enter the market in the long run. And as a result, this would reduce the profits made by individual businesses in the market. Because of the entry in the market is free, and as firms are making a profit in the short run, they attract the entry of new firms in the long run. So the entry of new firms will result to existing firms losing their profit to new firms. Why will it not not benefit a monopolist to charge a very high price or very high prices? Consumers will buy alternating products due to budget constraints. If ever consumers are having some alternating products, they will always look for those that are still selling at the lower cost. The total revenue will decline because the demand will decrease. As the firm is selling at the higher cost, consumers will always choose for the best alternative that can be used to satisfy the utility of that particular product. Then that will lead to what? Revenues for the business declining because consumers will be looking for alternating products. Loss of revenues could compromise the efficiency of the business operation. If ever the firm is not making much revenues, the efficiency of the business will be compromised. That's why the firm will always be reluctant to sell the product at the highest possible cost. It might lead to closing the operation due to loss in the market share or income. If ever the business keep on losing its income to the point that it cannot afford to cover its variable costs, the firm will end up not producing the product anymore or shutting down. We continue with section B. How could firms in the perfect market maximize their profits? Firms in a perfect market could increase the quantity of production to maximize their profit. Remember, under perfect market, firms do not have any control over the price. They cannot influence the price, but they can always influence the quantity produced for them to maximize their profits. Why would a state-owned monopoly firm fail to make economic profit? And then a monopoly may fail to make a profit due to mismanagement of funds, corruption, and incompetence. If ever under that particular state-owned monopoly or natural monopoly, there is a corruption, since it is a part of the public sector, then the firm will not be making huge profit. And then if ever workers in there or management is incompetent, lack basic skills that are necessary, the firm cannot make a profit in there. If ever there's a mismanagement of funds being wasted or misused, applying wasteful spending in that particular monopoly, there will always be the failure for the firm to make economic profit. Any other relevant correct response was accepted. And then this is the data response. This is where you are giving the graph A and graph B. It is very important for you to analyze your graph before you answer questions. Let's see. You have the first one, which is A here. And then our marginal private benefit, marginal social benefit. And then the demand is shifting here. Shift to the right. And then we have the second one, which indicates the supply now shifting. We have marginal private cost and marginal social cost. That means the supply curve is shifting to the left. So you know what happens to the quantity. You know what happens into the price. So let's look at questions here. Which of the two graphs show negative externality? At what price does the market experience an oversupply? Briefly describe the concept allocative efficiency. Why does the government provide subsidies on certain goods in the economy? How can the government correct or limit allocative distortions resulting from non-competitive market? And then that is out of 10 marks. Remember, data response will be giving you the total of 10 marks. We have the sequence, which is 1, 1, 2, 2, and 4 to give you the 10 marks. And then on our first question, Which of the two graphs indicate negative externality? We saw the shift of the supply curve shifting to the left. That was showing us the negative externality, which is B. At what price does the market experience an oversupply? That is P2. Briefly describe the term allocative efficiency. It occurs when the production mix reflects the taste and preferences for the consumer. When the consumer is satisfied by the mix of the product, we call that allocative efficiency. We continue. Why does the government provide subsidies on certain goods in the economy? The government does that to enhance consumer affordability and improvement of their livelihood, or improving standard of living, to make goods more affordable to consumers. For the government to intervene in providing subsidies, it is trying to ensure that people can be able to afford those goods and services in the economy, because maybe they are very much important for living, ensuring that the living standard of people is improved or is getting to be decent from being deficient. How can the government correct or limit allocative distortions resulting from non-competitive markets, allowing competition from abroad and within the country on the less profitable products but highly demanded by communities, providing subsidies and tax incentives to encourage those who wish to provide such services to make them available, offer training and research as well as development into how those services or goods be provided at the most cost-effective manner. Any possible relevant correct answer was accepted for 4 marks. And then this is another data response question. So here, we are facing the graph here. We are given the graph. These two graphs are indicating the firm as well as the industry. This is the market of the industry as well as individual firm. So this indicates what is it? The entry of new firms within the market. As we see, the supply is increasing, meaning there are so many firms that are entering the market. You see in your original supply curve and the demand, you have equilibrium for which the price is 10 Rand. And on the new supply curve shifting to the right, the new price is 7 Rand, meaning the price is declining. And we have S1. So on our firm or individual producer, the price is taken is 10 Rand. And then we see that whenever new firms are entering the market in the long run, what happens? The price will be declining because the market supply will be increasing. That's why we have D1 equals to MR1 equals to AR1. Our equilibrium point on the original point is E, and the new one is E1. Same thing applies with the industry. So these are the questions. Where does the marginal cost curve, MC, intersect the average cost curve, which is AC? That is 1 mark. Identify the price where the individual producer will make an economic profit. Briefly describe the term marginal cost. Why is the marginal revenue curve, MR, in the perfect market the same as the demand curve? 2 marks. Explain how long-run equilibrium is achieved in the perfect market. So these are the possible answers. Where does the MC intersect AC? The MC intersect AC at its lowest point or minimum point, which is E1, or at price of 7 Rand and quantity of 500. That is for 1 mark. Always remember, the AC will always intersect MC at its lowest point. Identify the price where the individual producer will make economic profit. That is 10 Rand. That is 1 mark. Remember identification. Like I said before, the first 2 answers that is covered in the extract in most cases. And then from there, this answer that we will be dealing with going down is not found in your data response. Briefly describe the concept or term, the marginal cost. Marginal cost is the cost that incurred after producing an extra additional unit, or additional cost incurred when 1 more unit is produced. And then we continue. Why is the marginal revenue curve, MR, in the perfect market the same as the demand curve? Remember that under the perfect market, the firm does not have a control over the price. The firm is a price taker. So each additional unit would be sold at the same price, which is the horizontal demand curve. Under the perfect market, the demand curve is horizontal because the firm takes the price from the industry or from the market. So in this case, each additional unit will always be sold at the same price. That's why they are on the same curve and they are always equal. We talk about AR and MR. It's unlike in the monopoly. That's a story for another day. Explain how long-run equilibrium is achieved in the market. So economic profit attracts new entrants in the market, which will increase the market supply, thus lowering the price. So in the long run, the economic profit that has been enjoyed in the short run will always attract the entry of new business into the market. As new businesses are entering the market supply will be increasing, which will decrease the price. And then individual firms will now be producing less because now the supply have increased for the market, the competition have increased. That results to firms not enjoying profits in the long run. And then the individual firm is a price taker, and the lower price will wipe out economic profits until the price or average revenue will be equal to the average cost. That's when the firm is making the normal profit, or it breaks even because it's not making a profit, neither a loss. The long run equilibrium position is where normal profit will prevail. So that is when normal profit will be achieved, where total cost will be equal to total revenues, or average cost will be equal to average revenues. And then another data response. We are given the extract here, the market information. Remember, it is very important that we know the effect of unavailability of information in the market. If ever there's an incomplete information in the market, how does that affect economic stakeholders when we talk about consumers, producers, as well as workers? So the extract read as follows. The market information. Many economic transactions are made in a situation of imperfect information, where either the buyer, the seller, or both have less than 100% certain about the qualities of what is being bought and sold. Also, the transaction may be characterized by the asymmetric information, in which one party has more information than another party regarding the economic transaction. That is what we call the principal agent information. This promotes the price discrimination. That is when the firm is selling the same product to different consumers at different prices. One is given the product at the higher price, while one is given the product at the lower price. Imperfect information makes it difficult to check the price for second-hand goods or used goods. They are either charged higher or less. And then these are the possible questions. So source, BC, Canvas Online. Identify the type of information most used in the imperfect market. And then that is 1 mark. Mention an example of goods that cannot easily be priced in the market. That is your 1 mark. And then from there, you will never discover any answer from the given extract. Briefly describe the concept price discrimination. What is the impact of an incomplete market information to consumers? How can the government intervene to resolve a problem of incomplete information within the economy? That is for 4 marks. Then all in all, you get 10 marks. Let's see possible responses for this data response. Identify the type of information. We talk about asymmetric information, 1 mark. Mention an example of goods that cannot easily be priced. We talk about second-hand goods or used goods. And then from there, the definition. Briefly describe the concept price discrimination. Price discrimination occurs when a product is sold to different consumers at different prices. What is the impact of an incomplete information or market information to consumers? Incomplete information results to inefficient use of financial resources by consumers, meaning consumers will find themselves buying goods that they don't actually need. But because they don't have enough information, they will buy those goods and services. Consumer decision making is based on available information about the product. If information is inadequately available or enough, irrelevant economic decisions are made by consumers. If ever consumers are not having the adequate information, they make irrelevant decisions, whereby they will be demanding goods that they don't actually need, whereby they will be wasting their financial resources. So that is the effect of imperfect information on the side of consumers. And then how can the government intervene to resolve or to solve a problem of incomplete market information? The state intervenes through direct control, passing laws that force businesses to make provision of information about their operations. That's when the government forces businesses through laws and regulations to make the provision of information on their operations and product, either on the packaging of the product or on the website of their own product or of their own operations. Lack of information is sometimes a barrier to entry to new firms or new businesses. The government therefore encourages businesses to provide information about their products, dosage, and ingredients on the packaging or web page of the product. So the government ensures that firms are pushed by law to provide information about their products, and also information. This information can be provided either on the packaging or on the web page of the product. That will allow even new firms not to be restricted from entering the market. That will allow consumers to make proper economic decisions without any wastage of their financial resources. And then section B continues. This is the middle order. Briefly discuss the nature of products and entry as characteristics of the perfect market. So in this case, we talk about homogeneous products as well as the free entry. Use the graph of total cost, which is TC, and total revenue, which is TR, to explain the profit maximization in the perfect market. The graph will be indicated to you. With the aid of graphs, briefly explain how price is determined for an individual producer in the perfect market. That's a price determination process. Explain the economic laws of a perfect competitor with the use of a graph. That's why you have to draw the graph indicating economic laws for the firm under the perfect market. And then we continue with the aid of well-labeled graph, cost and revenues curves. Explain the shutdown point for the individual firm under the perfect market. Then this is when you draw the shutdown point for the firm under the perfect market. Explain the aims or the aims of South Africa anti-monopolistic policy or anti-monopolist policy. That is 8 marks. Explain the roles which are played by two key institutions that monitor the competition in South Africa. That's when we talk about the Commission, the Commission Tribunal, and the Commission Appeals Court for 8 months. And then the use of the graph. Use the graph or total cost and total revenue to explain the profit maximization. So this is the graph that is supposed to be drawn. That's where you will be using your own table or you'll be given information. You draw your graph. Remember, at this point and this point, that means total cost and total revenues are equal. And then at this distance here, where the TC is further away from the total revenue, the firm will be maximizing its profit in there. So mark allocation, labeling of axis is 1 mark. So by writing quantity and revenues and cost, that will be giving you 1 mark. Labeling of axis, and then so that means you have 1, and then total cost, the curve is 1 mark. Total revenue is 1 mark. Indication of the point where total revenue equal total cost, point A or point B. These points, that will be giving you 1 mark. And then let's see the interpretation of the graph. At all points where total revenue, TR, is above total cost, which is TC, the firm is making economic profit. Where TR is more than TC, the firm makes economic profit because revenues exceed the cost of doing the business. At all points where total cost is above total revenues, that means the firm now is making economic loss because total costs are more than total revenues. The gap between total revenue and total cost represent the profit. And then profit is maximized where the gap between TR and TC is the greatest. Where the gap increases further or is widened, that's when the profit is maximized. This occurs at quantity 4, according to our graph. At quantity 4, that is when we talk about the profit maximization. Any other correct relevant response was given mark. That is for 8 marks. 4 marks for the graph and 4 marks for the interpretation or explanation. Explain the rules which are played by two key institutions that monitor competition in South Africa. So we talk about the Commission. It investigates restrictive practices by businesses. In this case, we talk about the anti-competitive behavior that is conducted by businesses to manipulate either consumers by exploiting them to higher prices, maybe by fixing prices or applying illegal measures. A grant permission in cases of mergers and takeovers. So it is very much responsible to ensuring that it gave permission to whom? To those businesses that want to make measures or takeovers. Make recommendations about penalties for businesses that it finds guilty or uncompetitive behavior or of restrictive practice. So after primarily, it does investigation, which is the primary investigation about the alleged anti-competitive behavior or restrictive practices. Number two, the firm gave a permission or a commission on measures or takeover that can occur within the economy. It also recommends the fine or the penalty to be imposed on the firm that it has found guilty of misconduct within the economy that is anti-competitive. And then the second one is the commission tribunal. So it is very much responsible to either accept or reject recommendations made by the competition commission. It has a right to do what? To do its own investigation, to check if ever findings by the competition commission are correct or wrong. And then it makes the final decision by imposing what? Imposing the final fine on the firm if ever the firm is found guilty. It is the tribunal of record and independent from other commission institutions. It grants exemptions or authorize or prohibit large measures, adjudicate if misconduct takes place, and then also impose final charges on the firm if ever the firm or firms have been found guilty of the misconduct. And then the Competition Appeals Court. This is more like the High Court of the competition in the country. So, if ever the firm is not happy with findings made by, findings by what? By the competition tribunal, the firm has a right to go and appeal in the Competition Appeals Court. And then the Appeals Court will have to do its own investigation to discover if the firm is guilty or not guilty of misconduct. If ever the firm is found guilty of misconduct, and then charges will remain. But if ever the firm is not found guilty by the Competition Appeals Court, the charges will be withdrawn from the firm. So, make final ruling on disputed matters, considers appeals made against decision made by the Commission Tribunal. Has status similar to the High Court. And then this is more like the High Court of Republic of South Africa for what? For the competition. It keeps those records for the competition. And then any other correct relevant response can be marked correct if ever it's relevant. And then marks are allocated 4 marks per per institution. Then only 2 were required, that is for 8 marks. Discuss the impact of cost benefit analysis on the income distribution or redistribution. And then how the other way around, how does the cost and benefit analysis impact the income redistribution in the economy? So CBA concentrates on the economic efficiency and benefits of a project. So it simply considers if the project will be economically worthwhile or not. The project, will it benefit the economy or not? Will it benefit the society or not? It considers on the analysis of the cost and benefit to see if the project will be having more cost or more benefits. And then if the benefits exceed the cost, acceptance of the project is recommended regardless of who benefits, if ever benefits are more than cost. However, if decision makers feel that the redistribution of income associated with the project is unacceptable, they may reject the project despite its net benefits. Losers are compensated in cash or in kind, while gainers pay high price or tax. So any other possible response that is relevant is given a mark. So this was out of 8 marks. And then section B, again, we continue. This is when we talk about the total revenues and the key demand curve. It is very much important for you to be able to draw the graph under key demand curve and explain the reason behind the key demand curve. Also, you must be able to calculate total revenues for all points. For instance, point A, point B, and point C. Remember, point A, we talk about the price being how much? 90 Rand is to 10 units. Point B, 50 Rand is to 30 units. Point C, 20 Rand is to 35 units. It is very much important for you to be able to compare these different total revenues for you to see why will the firm be reluctant to increase its prices from 50 Rand to 90 Rand. Why will the firm be reluctant to decrease its price under the oligopoly from 50 Rand to 20 Rand. That will be informed by what we call the total revenues. Remember, total revenue is the total income earned by the business after sale, where the price is multiplied by the quantity. So our TR equal to P times Q. Total revenue at point A, that is point A now. That's when we say at point A, the price is 90 rand. We can see the price is 90 rand, and then the quantity is 10 units. And then you simply say TR equals to P times 2, then 90 times 10, you get 900. So at point A, you have 900. So you need to also to calculate point B to see which combination will be giving the firm more total revenues. Then you will be able to answer the question on why will the firm be reluctant to either increase the price or decrease the price under the oligopoly. So that was the question. With the aid of a graph, explain why oligopolies will not charge higher or lower price to gain market share. And then at point B, this is the point B. At point B, the price is 50 rand and the quantity is 30 units. Let's see, the price is 50, quantity is 30. Now, our total revenue is TR equal to P times Q. So P times 2, the P is 50 and then Q is 30. That will be giving us 1,500. Remember, we had 900 here and then we have 1,500. Already we have a reason why will the firm be reluctant to sell at the price above 50 rand. Why will the firm be reluctant to increase the price to 90 rand from 50 rand? We have the answer because we can see the firm at point B is making more total revenues than at point A. And then the decrease in the price from 90 rand to 50 rand increases total revenue from 900 to 1,500 rand. The oligopoly firm can choose to sell its goods at 50 rand because it can get more total revenues. So the firm can choose to sell at this price and at this quantity because it will be able to achieve more revenues. Selling at 90 rand results to the firm earning less revenues. We have seen that if the firm is selling at 90 rand, it only earns 900 rand. Therefore, the firm will rather sell at 50 rand than 90 rand. So the firm will always choose to sell at 50 rand than selling at 90 rand because 50 rand will be giving the firm more total revenues as compared at when the firm is selling at 90 rand. And then we continue. So now we consider point C. So we are looking for the great combination. It was 900, 1,500. So we need to discover how much can be received by the firm as a total revenue if the firm lowers its prices from 50 rand to 20 rand. So at point C, 20 rand is the price and the quantity is 35 units. You can see this is the price and this is the quantity. And then total revenue equal to price times quantity. So let's work it out. P times Q, 20 times 35, it will be giving us 700. Then point C give us 700. So we already have the answer. Why will the firm be reluctant to either increase the price or decrease the price? So the firm will not be willing to sell at 90 rand, will not be willing to sell at 20 rand. Why? Because the best combination is point B, where the firm is selling at 50 rand and selling 30 units. That's when the firm maximizes its total revenue, which is 1,500. The decrease in the price from 50 rand to 20 rand decreased total revenue from 1,500 to 700 rand. The oligopoly firm can choose to sell its goods at 50 rand because it can get more revenues as compared to when the firm is selling either at 90 rand or 20 rand. Selling at 90 rand results to the firm earning less total revenues, while selling at 50 rand results to the firm making more total revenues or the highest total revenues, and selling at 20 rand will result to the firm making the lowest total revenues. As you can see, with the highest price, which is 90 rand, they get 900 rand. 50 rand is to 30 units, 1,500. And then 20 rand is to 35 units, 700. Then the firm will always choose to produce at point B and sell at point B because total revenues will be more than when the firm is producing at point A and point D. And then selling at the higher price result to the oligopolist, firm gaining less total revenues. As a result, the firm finds the best combination of the price and the quantity in order to get more total revenues. Collusive price gives a firm higher total revenues because it earns 1,500. This is our collusive price that allows the firm to earn more total revenues. So if the firm is selling at the higher price, which is 90 rand, or selling at the lowest price, which is 20 rand, result to the firm earning less total revenues as compared to the point when the firm is selling at 50 rand. Decreasing the price from 50 rand to 20 rand has no gain for the firm. Total revenues decreases to 700. This means that the combination of point C is not good for the firm. So this combination of 20 rand is to 35 units is not good for the firm because the firm is earning less total revenues. This is caused by the market interdependence. Remember, firms are very much interdependent to one another. If one firm decides to lower the price, other firms also do the same under oligopoly, avoiding losing their market share, because if they keep their prices high under pure oligopoly, that will result to these firms losing their market share to the rival firm that is selling at the lower cost. If one firm lower its price from 50 rand to 20 rand, competitors do the same, which lead to the loss of any expected profit or gain. So that's why here we have this inelastic bottom segment or demand curve. You can see that the top segment is relatively elastic and the bottom one is relatively inelastic. Why? The top one is relatively elastic because if one firm decides to increase its prices from 50 rand to 90 rand, competitors will be reluctant to increase their prices because they are avoiding to lose their market shares to the competitors. So they will keep their prices lower at 50 rand while this competitor is selling at the higher cost. Remember, we're talking about the pure oligopoly in this case. So if the firms sell at the higher cost while other firms in the same market are selling at the lower cost, that will lead to consumers of this firm that is selling at the higher cost shifting from this firm and demand goods from those firms that are still selling at the lower cost. Then consumers become very sensitive to price change in this case. That's why this demand curve is relatively elastic, indicating the sensitiveness of consumers to the increase in the price. And then on the bottom one, if ever one firm lower its prices from 50 rand to 20 rand, the firm is willing to achieve high revenues or high profits. However, if one firm lower its prices from 50 to 20 rand, other firms, remember, we said there is a very huge interdependence in this market. Firms are very much dependent on one another because if one firm make a profitable decision, other firms will be affected. Therefore, they sometimes opt to apply what we call an implicit collusion or hidden collusion or tacit collusion by copying the idea or strategy that is profitable or that will compromise their profit. So other firms will be lowering their prices too from 50 rand to 20 rand, which will lead to any expected gain by this particular firm that lowered the price initially to be lost immediately. You can see this demand curve becomes relatively inelastic, indicating that consumers are not now very sensitive to the price change because all of these firms that are competing in this market are selling at the lower price. They were selling at 50 rand, they are all now selling at 20 rand. Therefore, this firm that was planning to achieve more profit will not be achieving that profit due to the fact that even competitors have adopted the same price, meaning their consumers will not be floating from them to the other competitors. They will be stuck with them. So there will be no incentive for consumers to leave from their ordinary suppliers to the new supplier because all of these firms are selling at the same price, which is the lower cost. As a result, the demand curve becomes relatively inelastic in the part of the bottom segment, indicating that consumers tend to be not sensitive to the price change if ever firms are setting the same price, even though they are both decreasing the price. But if it is the same, consumers tend to be less sensitive to the price change. Then the bottom segment becomes relatively inelastic for the firms under oligopoly. And then the higher order questions. How do inefficiencies in the market affect consumers? When businesses do not maximize output for given resources, they do not produce at the lowest possible cost. So they find themselves using more inputs to produce less quantity of goods and services because they are very much inefficient. Businesses produce too few goods, thereby limiting consumer choices. If ever they are very much inefficient, they don't find the room to produce goods at the larger capacity. Therefore, they limit the consumer choice. Businesses allocate resources inefficiently and produce goods and services that consumers do not want. They find themselves producing the bad combination that is not really required by consumers. They find themselves undersupplying the product while consumers are demanding more of that particular product. We continue. How do inefficiencies affect consumers? It means that the product mix does not reflect consumer taste, and therefore resources are not allocated in the right proportions. Resources in there are not well allocated to their optimum level, or some resources are available but they are underutilized, or some are wasted rather, to make firms not to be able to produce goods at the right combination. supply does not correspond to the demand. They may either be oversupply or undersupply within the economy. The business could have used its resources more efficiently to make products that consumer value the most. And then we continue with the higher order. Why are equilibrium positions for the perfect commodity not sustainable in the long run? Profits are signals for the entry of new businesses. So if ever firms are enjoying profits in the short run, then attract the new entry of businesses. As new firms enter the market, what will happen? Prices will be lowered within the market because the supply will be increasing. And that will result to the profit being reduced or decreased from existing firms because of increased competition within the market. New technology develops daily, leading to increased supply in the market. As much as technology improves, that will lead to what? The increase in the supply in the market, which might lead to lower prices, and the profits cannot be sustained in the long run. The quality offered by businesses in the market increases, indicating mass production. So, as the quantity increases in the market, there will be mass production or the large scale production on the production in large quantities, which will lower prices. Remember, if prices are lowered, that will lead to the reduced profits by businesses. The increase in the supply leads to the decrease in price due to lower cost per unit. If ever there is an increase in the supply, the price will be decreasing, which will reduce the cost per unit. Then the profit will not be sustained within the market. All businesses in the industry will make normal profit and produce at the minimum of the long run average cost. The economic loss will lead to some business leaving the market and the supply will decrease. So if ever firms are making economic loss, that will result to other firms leaving the market, and that will lower the supply within that particular market. The decrease in the supply will lead to an increase in the price until it is at the same level as the long run average cost. If businesses are able to turn their losses to profit, they will make normal profit over at the long run. Any other correct and relevant answer is acceptable for 8 marks. Ensure that you respond in point form and in full sentences. We continue. How can the anti-competitive policy benefit entrepreneurial activities? If ever firms are using the anti-competitive strategies or restrictive practices within the economy, how will they benefit? The anti-competitive policy will benefit entrepreneurial activities by promoting economic transformation of the economy by ensuring that there is no restriction on the entry of new industries, keeping economic power of big businesses in South Africa in order to achieve more equitable distribution of income and wealth, helping South African businesses to become more competitive, lower or selling at the lower prices, ensuring that the South African competition law is in line with the international standards or international benchmark, so that our local business can be competitive in the global market. Preventing monopolies and other powerful businesses from abusing their power. That's when monopolies set higher prices and restrict the output in the market. Also, prevent the entry of new businesses through licensing and patents. Preventing firms from using restrictive practices like price fixing, dividing markets. Regulating transfer of ownership in keeping with public interest. Giving all South Africans get an opportunity to participate fairly in the economy. So ensuring that all South Africans are able to participate in the economic mainstream. Providing markets with consumers have access to freely select quantity and variety. So allowing markets to have a variety of goods and services available. Promoting establishment of new businesses so that the market can be able to provide a variety of goods and services. Providing the environment to compete effectively in the internal market. Also allowing local businesses or promoting local businesses to openly participate in the international market. Any other possible response? Giving a mark for 8 marks. We continue. How do monopolies set prices in contrast to the perfect competitive market? In a perfect competitive market, price setting is determined by the effect of market forces, demand and supply. No individual firm have an influence over the price. It is determined where marginal cost equals to the marginal revenue. In a monopoly, the price is set above the marginal cost and the firm earns a positive economic profit in both short run and long run in that case. Perfect competition produces at an equilibrium in which the price and quantity of goods is economically efficient. And then, how do banks compete in the oligopoly? We know that banks are the part of oligopoly, and their competition in there is very much interdependent to one another. Branding, banks are particular in establishing a branding product like an emblem that can easily be associated with it. So ensuring that it is having a brand that make it to be very much unique from other brands of competitors. Advertising, banks constantly come up with innovative advertising campaigns to influence potential consumers or customers. Traditionally, banks have competed heavily on interest on various types of interest-bearing deposits and interest charged on the credit. Banks differentiate their products is through bundling. For example, a consumer will tend to get more value from a transaction account if it is linked with the interest-bearing savings account. So that's how they try to compete effectively and attract the attention of more clients or consumers. Customer satisfaction surveys. It has become common practice for banks to conduct internal or external or independent customer satisfaction rating surveys. Banks are responding, raising the quality of their service, resulting in still increasing the satisfaction of their clients. And then section B, higher order paragraph. And then we continue. Consumers value the ability of conveniently interact with their financial institutions. This interaction may take many forms, such as via mobile apps, telephone, internet banking, and face-to-face branch interaction. Digital technology, ATM, cell phone banking, EFT, and other electronic transactions have become common practice. Any bank that does not provide these services will be doomed and will be losing its market share to competitors. And then evaluate monopolistic competition as a perfect market structure. Advantages, differentiated product. This means more choices available for consumers. Firms have incentive to innovate because of competition. Higher in demand, higher in improving quality of products, looking for more efficient ways of production, possibly leading to a lower price. Advertising, usually there is a high level of advertising in monopolistic competition. This provides consumers with information and hence lowers set cost. So it allows consumers to access information and make informed decisions as they demand the product. Disadvantages. Neither technical nor technical allocative efficiency. This leads to deadweight welfare loss. The primary economic problem of allocating resources in the most efficient way is not solved. Resources are wasted, e.g., used as packaging, where they try to have that smart packaging. Large number of firms, that means limited access to economies of scale, because there are many firms that are supplying differentiated products but that are satisfying the similar utility. Large number of firms could lead to too much choice for consumers and in turn to high search cost. Advertising might mislead consumers. So if ever firms are advertising the most, that might lead to firms being misled because some of advertising campaigns are deceptive. Advertising is usually costly, hence product price might be higher as the firm keep on advertising the product. That is adding to the cost of the product. So the cost of the product might be higher because of intensive advertising by firms. No abnormal profits, limited innovation and investment in R&D, research and development. That is for 8 marks. Any other relevant response was given a mark. And then this is section C for the monopoly. So let's see the question. The question was saying, discuss, or with the aid of graphs, discuss how economic profit and economic loss are determined in the monopoly market. 26 marks. And then, why does the performance of natural monopolies contradict or deny the long-run equilibrium position of a monopoly? It is very important for you to understand the question before you attempt to answer. It is very important for you to avoid early excitement. Look at this question. With the age of graphs, number one, with the age of graphs. So this means you should be using graphs to discuss the economic profit and economic loss under the monopoly market. So it is very much important for you to underline the key points, because some of the people here can simply discuss characteristics for which they will be wrong. You need to discuss with the age of graph, meaning the graph is the main component to be drawn and be discussed in them. So main part is 26 marks and the additional part is 10 marks. Let's see possible responses. You have your introduction, remember, where you define or describe the monopoly. A monopoly is a market structure where only one seller operates. Entry is blocked and the product has no close substitutes. That gives you 2 marks. Remember, the information you provide in the introduction should not be repeated in the body of your essay. And then the body or the main part of the essay. This is where you are drawing the graph. Remember, it is very much important for you to know the positioning of average cost, because the average cost is the key curve to determine if the firm is making the profit or a loss. So wherever it turns, it will be determining if the firm is making a profit or a loss or a normal profit. For instance, if ever the AC is turning below the AR, that means the firm is making economic profit. But if the AC is turning above the AR, that indicates economic loss. So in this case, look at the graph that is drawn. You know that you must always label your axis, your quantity and the price or cost and revenues. That will be giving you some marks. And then you draw your revenue curves, MR and AR. You will be getting a mark for both of them being drawn correctly. And then you draw your cost curve, which is MC and AC. The well positioning of them will be giving you a mark. And then you indicate the what we call the cost position, which is B, and then you indicate the revenues position, which is A. And then shade the area which indicate the profit or a loss. That will be giving you a mark. Let's see allocation of marks. Correct positioning of and labeling of curves, which are the cost, you get a mark for that. Correct positioning of and labeling of revenues, you get a mark for this for both of them. And then correct indication of profit maximization. That is when you get a mark where MC equals to MR. And then correct indication of the market price. That is where you get a mark at point A there, because it indicates the market price. Correct indication of economic profit. That will be giving you 2 marks. That shaded area. You shade the area and indicate economic profit, then you will be getting the maximum of 2 marks for that. And then the graph all in all is 6 marks. Then what is next? You need to be able now to explain. Monopoly is subject to same technological and cost constraints as other market structures. The cost structure of the monopoly is the same than that of competitive businesses, where the monopolists will try to maximize both short run and long run profits. Location of short run average cost in relation to market price determines the profit. So wherever the short run average cost tends, it will be determining if the firm is making a profit or a loss. The marginal revenue curve, which is MR, lies below the average revenue curve, halfway between AR and the origin. We know that the MR always lies below the AR curve. They are only equal at the initial point at the bottom left, at the top left, but as they slope downward, they split and the MR cuts the horizontal axis in the middle. We continue. The MC curve or marginal cost curve intersect average cost curve at its lowest point or minimum point. Determine point where short run marginal cost curve equals to marginal revenue. That is what we call the profit maximization point, which is indicated as E. The monopolist will produce at the output quantity 10, where MR equals to MC, because it can maximize its profit. That simply means it will be irrelevant for the firm to produce beyond the profit maximization point, because it has already maximized the profit. If the firm produces below the profit maximization output, the firm cannot maximize its profit. Point A represents average revenues at the selling price of 10 rand, while the point B represents average cost, which is C. When the average revenue is more than average cost, it results to the firm making economic profit, or when the total revenue is more than total cost, it results to the firm making economic profit. The monopoly business makes economic profit when AC curve tends below the AR curve. If AC is standing just below AR, that means revenues are more than the cost. The firm is making economic profit. The monopoly blocks the new entries so that competing business cannot reduce short-run economic profit. Total income or total revenue equal to price times quantity, which will be OP, which is 10 times OQ, which is 10. That will be giving us 100. That is the total revenue for the firm. Total cost equals to cost times quantity, which is OC, which is 6 times OQ, which is 10. It gives us 60. And then the economic profit for the firm will be income minus cost, meaning revenues minus cost, which will be 100 minus 60 to give us 40 rand. That will be giving you the maximum of 10 marks. The explanation alone. Remember, this is the same as profit equals to AR minus AC times Q, these calculations. And then it is the same as profit equals to TR minus TC, which is, open the bracket, AR multiplied by quantity, close the bracket, minus, open the bracket, AC times quantity. So the above is the same as these two. It will be giving you, for economic loss, 40 rands. And then the second part is economic loss. We know that the economic loss will be achieved if revenues are lower than cost, or if costs exceed revenues. That will be when average cost exceed average revenues, or total cost exceed total revenues. Then the average cost curve will be turning above revenues. You can see that our revenues are at this point G. Where are our costs? Our costs are up there at point F, they are turning there. That means now our income for the business is lower than expenses incurred in the business. Expenses are equal to 10 and income equal to 7. Meaning our revenues are equal to 7 and our costs are equal to 10. Then the firm is making economic loss in this case. You draw your graph regularly, you label your axis, you indicate the profit area, you indicate your cost, and you indicate your revenues. And then you will be receiving marks, you will be rewarded marks based on that well positioning of the cost curve, positioning of AR curves and AC curves, and then the profit maximization point where MC equal to MR. It will be also be a mark. And then 2 marks for shaded area, which indicate economic loss. And then labeling your what you call your quantity, and the price will be giving you a mark. And then the minimum point of short run average cost is higher than the market price. We can see that the short run average cost is more than what we call the average revenues or the market price. A monopoly makes economic loss when its revenues are less than its cost. The monopoly will produce at the output level where MR equals to MC, or marginal revenue equal to marginal cost, because it can minimize its loss. We call that one a loss minimization output. Point G represent the average revenues at the selling price, which is 7, while point F indicate or represent average cost, which is equals to 10. The average cost is more than average revenue, resulting to the firm making economic loss. When the total cost is more than total revenues, or when the average cost is more than average revenues, the firm will be subjected to the economic loss. Shaded area, which is PCEF, shows economic loss. The monopoly suffer an economic loss in the short run when the average cost curve is above the market price, or is above the average revenues, which is G. Total income or total revenue is equal to price times quantity. Therefore, we substitute OP, which is 7 times OQ, which is 5, equals to OP GQ, which is 35. And then total cost equals to cost times quantity, which will be OC, which is 10 times OQ, which is 5. That will be giving us OC FQ, which is 50. That means our costs are equal to 50 and our revenues are equal to 35. Then the firm is making economic loss of what? Of 15, because we'll be saying AC minus AR multiplied by quantity. And then we substitute, we'll be getting 15 as what? As economic loss. It will be negative. So remember, if it's economic loss, the amount will be negative. But if it's economic profit, the amount will be positive. And then the additional part. How does the performance of natural monopolies contradict or deny long-run equilibrium position for a monopoly? So the performance of natural monopolies, remember natural monopolies in South Africa, that is 10 marks. So natural monopolies performance are not always in line with the long-run equilibrium position for the monopoly. Because, remember, in the long run, we believe that the monopolist firm should be making economic profit because the firm becomes the only supplier of the unique product. The firm's product does not have any perfect substitute. The firm does not have any competitor within the market. It is the only supplier of this particular product. Therefore, it is believed that in the long run and the short run, firms under the monopoly will always enjoy the economic profit or supernormal profit or abnormal profits. However, it happens that the firm does not make the supernormal profit in the long run if its average cost exceed average revenues or if its total cost exceed total revenues. Why does that happen? These are the reasons. Compared to typical monopoly where economic profit always prevails over the long run, natural monopolies do not enjoy benefits experienced by other monopolies. Why do natural monopolies do not enjoy this? Remember, they supply the product that is very much necessary for the social welfare. And they impose prices. Sometimes those prices become user charges. They are sold or they are charged below the market price to benefit the consumer so that consumers can be able to afford the product. They don't use the mechanism of demand and supply to set the price because they don't care about profit, but they care about social welfare and the social well-being. As a result, they find themselves not complying to those regulations of long-run equilibrium, which is the economic profit. We continue. Natural monopolies require high development costs, which prevent others from entering the market. So there are so many, there's so much high development cost that will always prevent them from making economic profit in the long run, because for them to improve and adapt to the new technology, there's a lot of money that is required for them. Natural monopolies supply goods and services to the nation as a whole, and therefore it is difficult to set a very high price. They cannot do what is done by artificial monopolies by restricting the output and increasing the price, because their main mandate is social welfare and the social well-being. It is then always difficult for them to set prices above the market price or at the market price, because they don't use the market mechanism of demand and supply to set prices. Their prices are basically maximum prices to ensure that marginalized are accommodated to afford this particular necessary product for the social welfare, so that people can live a decent standard of living. Eskom is subjected to National Energy Regulator in South Africa, which is NERSA, that determines the selling price for electricity in the country. So Eskom simply suggests and requests to increase the price so that it can be able to earn more revenues. Then the NERSA, or National Energy Regulator of South Africa, the committee will sit and see if it's worthwhile for Eskom to set its prices higher or to increase the price. Then NERSA will simply decide if the price should be increased or kept at the lower level. So Eskom does not simply determine the price on its own. That makes it difficult for it to enjoy that economic profit or long-run equilibrium that is depicted under monopolies. A natural monopoly experiences high maintenance cost compared to artificial monopolies. That compromises their profits, because for them to maintain their operations, they need huge amount to keep their infrastructure at the good level. Therefore, the amount for maintenance is the one that is used, and then what happens? Profits will always be compromised because the amount that should be a profit is used to maintain the business or the operations. Natural monopolies cannot manipulate its quantities to increase the price. Remember, I said that because these businesses are the SOEs. At the same time, they are all about social welfare. They consider the social interest than considering the self and economic interest the most. So self-interest is not considered the most. Social and economic interest are the ones that are put forward so that economy can be able to achieve efficiency even for other businesses. Revenue seem to be less than the cost due to corruption. We know that monopolies or SOEs or natural monopolies are the state-owned enterprises. We call them parastatals. So there's a high level of corruption. And at the same time, we have the lack of accountability in there. Officials are not held accountable regularly, meaning they can make wrong decisions regularly because they know that they will never be held accountable for their wrongdoings based on income and expenditure. Non-payment by large number of electricity users. We know that some communities are not paying for electricity. They breach electricity. They use illegal connections. So that consume electricity from ESCOM, and at the same time, as they keep on consuming without paying, that will compromise the supplier. Supplier will try to keep the supply going on its own cost. That's why ESCOM will always knock into the government office by doing what? By asking for financial bailout so that it can continue providing electricity in the country, because some people are not paying for electricity in South Africa. There are so many municipalities in South Africa that are owing ESCOM a lot of money. Some are owing about 15 billion, I cannot mention. So that is because, this failure to achieve the long run equilibrium is caused by the failure of some areas to pay the electricity and illegal connections. Under normal circumstances, a monopoly will shut down if average costs exceed average revenue. It will shut down under normal circumstances because it is believed that the firm is the only supplier of a unique product. It does not have a competitor or any competitor. Therefore, it should be making economic profit in the short run and the long run. However, natural monopolies do not shut down because this product is very important for the social welfare. It's very important for the economic welfare. Therefore, the government intervened by giving them what we call the bailout or financial support so that they can be able to keep on producing this particular product. Remember, these are the strategic companies for the state. So they are very much important for the welfare of the country and the welfare of the economy. Hence, the government intervened by giving them the bailout so that they can continue with their operations. They can continue funding themselves or their operations for the sake of the supply of public services in the society or in the economy. The internal or private cost structure of natural monopolies have increased, but the private benefits revenue of sales stagnated or have decreased due to poor maintenance of the infrastructure. We have seen ESCOM facing the problem of higher maintenance costs. They don't maintain their infrastructure regularly. So whenever it's time for them to maintain, or whenever they have to supply under pressure, and then their stations will crash, and then there will be a load shedding or a load reduction until the station or the power supply have been maintained. So that alone results to the monopolies not having to comply or enjoy the economic profit in the long run as compared to artificial monopolies. And then the conclusion. Remember, your conclusion should be the higher order response, should not be a repetition from your board and the actual part of your essay. The monopoly can continue to earn economic profit for as long as the demand for its product continues and its production costs stay the same. There are so many ways that you can use to conclude. Remember, it is impossible for all of you in the same class to have this common conclusion, because this is the higher order. This is the critical part where one has to think and synthesize and evaluate and also provide the solution. So it is impossible for about 30 learners to have this common answer in conclusion. That will be something else that should be investigated sometimes. So with all of this being said, I thank you. I'm wishing you all the best for your examination tomorrow. Just be assured the paper will be easy. Repetition of microeconomics alone will lead to the paper losing that spirit. So go there being prepared and get your 150 or 150, get your distinction and enjoy. Enjoy your preparation. Good luck.